Hello everyone, welcome to NEET 2016 Physics Solutions. Phase 1 exam held on 1st May. A siren emitting a sound of frequency 800 Hz moves away from an observer towards a cliff at a speed of 15 meters per second. Then the frequency of sound that the observer hears in the echo reflected from the cliff is. Take speed of sound in air to be 330 meters per second. Here you can see the source of sound is moving away from the stationary observer and towards a cliff. The frequency of sound emitted by the source is 800 Hz. The frequency of sound received by the cliff is given by the formula n cliff equal to v by v minus vs into n. Here the cliff acts as stationary observer. Upon simplification we get the value as 838 Hz. The frequency of sound received by the cliff is equal to the frequency of the sound reflected by the cliff, because upon reflection or refraction the frequency of a wave does not change. So the cliff reflects a frequency of 838 Hz. So the observer hears a frequency of 838 Hz. Out of the following options, which one can be used to produce a propagating electromagnetic wave? The options are a chargeless particle. A chargeless particle is not associated with any field, neither magnetic nor electric. Second option is accelerating charge. An accelerating charged particle radiates electromagnetic energy. Then the third option is a charge moving at constant velocity, produces only magnetic field that is constant. Fourth one is a stationary charge. A stationary charged particle creates only electric field. So the correct option is 2. An inductor 20 millihenry, a capacitor 50 microfarad and a 40 ohm resistor are connected in series across a source of EMF given by V equal to 10 sin 340t. The power loss taking place in the circuit is. The power loss taking place in an AC series circuit is given by the formula P equal to VI cos phi, where phi is the phase angle difference between voltage wave and current wave. So cos phi becomes power factor. Now since all the three elements are present here, let us find the impedance of the circuit. Z equal to R square plus XL minus XC whole square under root. So by substituting the given values, we get the impedance of the circuit as 64.6 ohm. RMS value of the voltage is V0 by root 2, that is 10 by root 2, 5 root 2 volts. From there RMS value of current is V by Z, 5 root 2 by 65.6 ampere. The power factor cos phi is given by the formula cos phi equal to R by Z. So from there putting all the values, we get power equal to 0.46 watt, that is close to the third option. Coefficient of linear expansion of brass and steel rods are alpha 1 and alpha 2. Lengths of brass and steel rods are L1 and L2 respectively. If L2 minus L1 is maintained same at all temperatures, which one of the following relations hold good? As you can see from the given data, quotients are given alpha 1 and alpha 2, lengths are given L1 and L2. Let us write the expressions for length of the brass rod and steel rod at a given temperature T. Length of the brass rod L1 equal to L0B of 1 plus alpha 1T, where L0B is the length of the brass rod at 0 degrees centigrade. Similarly, length of the steel rod at T temperature is L2 equal to L0S of 1 plus alpha 2T. So from there, subtract both the equations, L2 minus L1, we get L0 steel of 1 plus alpha 2T minus L0 brass of 1 plus alpha 1T. Since the length has to be maintained constant at all temperatures, we get L2 minus L1 equal to L0 steel minus L0 brass. From there it is simplification process. Finally you get alpha 1 L1 equal to alpha 2 L2. At what height from the surface of the earth, gravitational potential and value of G are minus 5.4 into 10 power 7 joule per kg minus 2 and 6.0 meter per second square respectively. Radius of the earth is 6400 kilometer. The formula for gravitational potential is given by Vg equal to minus Gm by r plus h. That should be equal to minus 5.4 into 10 power 7. Acceleration due to gravity is given by Gm by r plus h whole square. That should be equal to 6.0 meter per second square. Take the ratio, we get Vg by G equal to minus r plus h. From there h equal to minus Vg by G minus r. Upon simplification, we get the value of h to be 2600 kilometer. A piece of ice falls from a height h so that it melts completely. Only 1/4 of the heat energy produced is absorbed by the ice, and all the energy lost in fall is converted into heat. The value of h is. Take latent heat of fusion of ice to be 3.4 into 10 power 5 joule per kg and G 10 Newton per kg. As you can see, as ice is falling down, it will lose potential energy. According to the given condition, all the potential energy lost by the ice is converted into heat, out of which only 1/4 is absorbed by the block. So, 1/4 of the potential energy lost by the ice block is absorbed by the ice block in the form of heat. So, it is 1/4 mgh equal to ml. From there h equal to 4l by g, we get it as 136 kilometer. In a diffraction pattern due to a single slit of width A, the first minimum is observed at an angle of 30 degrees when light of wavelength 5000 Armstrong units is incident on the slit. The first secondary maximum is observed at an angle of. Write the condition for first minimum in a single slit diffraction pattern. A sin theta equal to m lambda, where m is 1. From there we get the value of A to be 2 lambda. Now the condition for first secondary maximum, A sin alpha equal to m plus half lambda. Since we have calculated the value of A in the first step, we can write it 2 lambda sin alpha equal to 3 by 2 lambda. From there alpha equal to sin inverse 3 by 4. A potentiometer wire is 100 cm long and a constant potential difference is maintained across it. Two cells are connected in series, first to support each other and then to oppose each other. The balance points are obtained at 50 cm and 10 cm from the positive end of the wire in both cases. The ratio of EMFs is. In the case of a potentiometer, the potential difference across any given length of the wire is directly proportional to the balancing length. In the first case, the cells are connected in series aiding, that means they are supporting each other. So we can write E1 plus E2 equal to K times L1, where L1 is 50 cm. In the second case, the two cells are connected in series opposition, so they are opposing each other. So E1 minus E2 equal to KL2, here L2 is 10. Taking the ratio of the two expressions, we get E1 plus E2 by E1 minus E2 equal to 50 by 10. From there, E1 by E2 equal to 3 by 2. A particle of mass 10 gram moving along a circle of radius 6.4 cm with a constant tangential acceleration. What is the magnitude of this acceleration if the kinetic energy of the particle becomes 8 into 10 power minus 4 joule by the end of second revolution after beginning of the motion? Let's apply work energy theorem. W net equal to delta K, that is K final minus K initial, that is equal to 8 into 10 power minus 4 joule. Here there are two forces acting on the particle. One is a centripetal force, another one is a tangential force. Centripetal force acts along the radius towards the center, so the work done by centripetal force is 0. Now coming to the work done by tangential force, it is force into displacement Ft into 2 times 2 pi r as the particle completes circular path 2 times. So from there W net equal to 8 into 10 power minus 4. From there AT equal to 0.1 meter per second square. An air column closed at one end and open at the other resonates with a tuning fork when the smallest length of the column is 50 cm. The next larger length of the column resonating with the same tuning fork is. The smallest length of the air column corresponds to the first harmonic or fundamental frequency of vibration, which is given by lambda by 4. So lambda by 4 equal to 50 cm, from which we get lambda equal to 200 cm. The next larger length of the air column will be corresponding to the third harmonic, so which is equal to 3 lambda by 4. So that is 150 cm. To get output 1 for the following circuit, the correct choice of inputs is. As we can see, the given logic circuit contains two logic gates, the first one being OR gate and the second one being AND gate. The output of OR gate is A plus B, that is algebraic addition, while the output of AND gate is A into B, that is algebraic multiplication. Since the output of OR gate is fed into the AND gate, so the final output will be A plus B into C. Now, y equal to A plus B into C, you can see different options of the inputs available here. So we get in the second option where A is 1, B is 0 and C is 1, the output will be 1. A gas is compressed isothermally to half of its initial volume. The same gas is compressed separately through an adiabatic process until its volume is again reduced to half. Then which of the following statements are correct? Now you can see the work done in a thermodynamic process can be represented in the form of a PV diagram, where P is pressure taken on y-axis, V is volume taken on x-axis. The area under PV diagram gives you work done. Now, representing isothermal and adiabatic processes in PV diagram, we can see the curve with more slope should be adiabatic process, because the slope of adiabatic process is gamma times the slope of isothermal process. So from the PV diagram, work done in isothermal process is more. The maximum intensity in YDSE is I naught. Distance between the slits is 5 lambda, where lambda is the wavelength of light used. What will be the intensity in front of one of the slits on the screen placed at a distance 10d? As seen from the diagram, we can calculate the path difference between the two waves, delta x equal to d sine theta. Since we use small angle approximation in YDSE, sine theta can be replaced with tan theta. That comes out to be small d into y by capital D. By substituting the values of small d and capital D, we get path difference equal to lambda by 4. We have to calculate the corresponding phase difference, which is given by the relation phase difference equal to delta x by lambda into 2 pi. So delta x we have calculated to be lambda by 4. Upon substitution, we get phase difference to be pi by 2. Coming to the resultant intensity, I equal to I1 plus I2 plus 2 root I1 I2 cos phi. Since both the slits are of same width, the intensity of light coming from both the slits is same. So the resultant intensity comes out to be I0 by 4. Now intensity in front of one of the slits is I1 plus I2 plus 2 root I1 I2 cos pi by 2. Since cos pi by 2 is 0, the resultant intensity is 2i, which can be written as I0 by 2 from the above equation. Car is negotiating a curved road of radius r. The road is banked at an angle theta. The coefficient of friction between the tire and the road is mu s. The maximum safe speed on the road is. Take some time to see carefully different forces acting on the car when it is on banked road. For equilibrium in vertical direction, n cos theta equal to f sin theta plus mg. Centripetal force for the circular path, mv square by r equal to f cos theta plus n sin theta. Taking the ratio, we get v square by rg equal to f cos theta plus n sin theta by n cos theta minus f sin theta. From there, you simplify it, we get v equal to root of gr times mu s plus tan theta by 1 minus mu s tan theta under root. An electron of mass m and a photon have same energy E. The ratio of de Broglie wavelengths associated with them is. Given that the energy of electron and energy of photon is same, that is equal to E. De Broglie wavelength of electron can be written as lambda electron equal to h by p, that is h by root of 2me. Coming to de Broglie wavelength of photon, it is h by p, that is hc by E, because momentum of photon can be written as E by c. Taking the ratio lambda electron by lambda photon comes out to be 1 by c times root of E by 2m. A black body is at a temperature of 5760 Kelvin. The energy of radiation emitted by the body at a wavelength 250 nanometer is U1, at a wavelength 500 nanometer is U2, and that at 1000 nanometer is U3. Wien's constant is 2.88 into 10 power 6 nanometer Kelvin. Which of the following options is correct? Temperature of the black body is given to be 5760 Kelvin. Let us write Wien's displacement law, lambda m into capital T equal to B. From there, lambda m equal to B by T, we get it 500 nanometer. So 500 nanometer corresponds to maximum intensity or energy. You can see the graphical representation at different wavelengths below. Given the value of Rydberg constant is 10 power 7 meter inverse, the wave number of the last line of Balmer series in hydrogen spectrum will be. Wave number of spectral line is given by 1 by lambda equal to r times 1 by n final square minus 1 by n initial square. For the last line of Balmer series, n final is 2, n initial is infinity. That is, the electron should jump from infinity to second orbit. So substituting the given values, we get 1 by lambda equal to 0.25 into 10 power 7. An NPN transistor is connected in common emitter configuration in an amplifier. A load resistance of 800 ohms is connected in collector circuit and the voltage drop across it is 0.8 volt. If this current amplification factor is 0.96 and the input resistance of the circuit is 192 ohm, the voltage gain and the power gain of the amplifier will be. As the transistor is connected in common emitter configuration, the input is base terminal and the output is collector terminal. Current amplification factor IC by IB is 0.09. Voltage gain of the amplifier Vg equal to current gain times ratio of resistance, that comes out to be 4. So the power gain of the amplifier will be output power by input power, that can be written as voltage gain into current gain, that comes out to be 3.84. Two non-mixing liquids of densities ρ and n ρ are put in a container. The height of each liquid is h, a solid cylinder of length L and density d is put in the container. The cylinder floats with its axis vertical and length PL in denser liquid. The density d is equal to. As we can see from the diagram, weight of the cylinder, that is the gravitational force, is mg. Mass can be written as volume into density. Volume can be written as area of cross section into length. So weight of the cylinder comes out to be LADG. Then since there are two liquids present, both of them will be giving upthrust, that is buoyancy force. The buoyancy force given by the bottom liquid is PLA into N rho G, and the upthrust given by the upper liquid is L minus PL times A into rho G. The total upthrust is sum of these two forces. Now, for equilibrium, the resultant force on the object should be 0, that is the downward gravitational force should be equal to the upward buoyancy force. Equating the expressions obtained, we get the value of d equal to 1 plus n minus 1 times p into rho. The velocity of a particle v equal to at plus bt square, where a and b are constants. The distance traveled by the particle between first second and second second is. The velocity of the particle, as we write it, it is at plus bt square. We obtain distance traveled by the particle by integrating the velocity equation. Velocity can be written as dx by dt. So dx by dt equal to at plus bt square. Cross multiplying, we get dx equal to at plus bt square times dt. Applying integration on both sides, integral dx equal to integral 1 to 2 at plus bt square dt. Upon integration, we get the distance traveled to be 3 by 2a plus 7 by 3b. I suggest the students go through the integration process carefully and the limit substitution also. An astronomical telescope has an objective and eyepiece of focal length 40 cm and 4 cm respectively. To view an object 200 cm away from the objective, the lenses must be separated by. The separation between the lenses is nothing but the length of the tube is V0 plus Fe, where V0 is image distance formed by objective lens and Fe is the focal length of eye lens. Writing the lens formula for objective lens, 1 by V0 minus 1 by U0 equal to 1 by F0. From there we get V0 equal to 50 centimeter. Now the separation between the lenses is V0 plus Fe, that is 54 centimeter. The ratio of escape velocity at Earth Ve to escape velocity at a planet Vp whose radius and mean density are twice that of the Earth is. Escape velocity on any planet is given by V equal to root of 2 gm by r, where capital G is universal gravitational constant, capital M is mass of the planet, r is radius of the planet. Since the problem is framed in terms of radius and mean density, let us replace mass with density and volume. Since planet is spherical in shape, mass can be written as volume into density. Volume is 4/3 pi r cube. So the formula for escape velocity in terms of mean density is r times root of 8 pi g by 3 into rho. Now writing this formula for Earth and planet and taking the ratio, we get Ve by Vp equal to 1 by 2 root 2. A long straight wire of radius A carries a steady current I. The current is uniformly distributed over its cross section. The ratio of magnetic fields B and B' at radial distances A by 2 and 2a from the axis of the wire is. You can see the diagram. The cross section of the wire is represented here with both the radii A by 2 and 2a. The current density is uniform. So we can write current density J equal to I by pi a square. That is also equal to small I by pi a by 2 whole square, where capital I is the total current and small I is the current flowing through a by 2 part of the wire. From there we get a small I equal to capital I by 4. Now apply Ampere's circuit law. Integral b bar dot dl bar equal to mu naught into I. For the inner part, we get b1 into integral dl is nothing but circumference of the circle, that is 2 pi into a by 2 equal to mu naught capital I by 4. And for the outer part of the conductor, we get b2 times 2 pi into 2a equal to mu naught into I. Taking the ratio, we get b1 by b2 equal to 1 by 4. A capacitor of 2 microfarad is charged as shown in the diagram. When the switch S is turned to position 2, the percentage of its stored energy dissipated is. The energy stored in the first capacitor is half CV square, that is 10 power minus 6 V square. Now the total charge on the first capacitor is CV, that is 2V into 10 power minus 6 coulomb. When the switch is thrown to second position, the two capacitors attain common potential given by Vcom equal to total charge by total capacitance. That comes out to be V by 5 volt. Now energy stored in both capacitors is U final equal to, again we write the same formula, half CV square, but this time the two capacitors are connected in parallel. So in the place of C we have to write 2 plus 8. That comes out to be V square by 5 into 10 power minus 6. So the percentage loss of energy is U initial minus U final by U initial into 100. That comes out to be 80%. When a metal surface is illuminated with radiation of wavelength lambda, the stopping potential is V. If the same surface is illuminated with radiation of wavelength 2 lambda, the stopping potential is V by 4. The threshold wavelength of the metallic surface is. Let's write Einstein's photoelectric equation E equal to phi naught plus EV, where E is the energy of incident radiation, phi naught is work function, V is stopping potential. Since it is given in terms of lambda, we get hc by lambda equal to phi naught plus EV. For the first wavelength, the equation comes out to be hc by lambda equal to phi naught plus EV, and for the second wavelength, the equation is hc by 2 lambda equal to phi naught plus EV by 4. Solving the two equations, we get EV equal to 2 by 3 hc by lambda. Substituting this value in the first equation, we get lambda naught equal to 3 lambda. If the magnitude of sum of two vectors is equal to magnitude of difference between the two vectors, the angle between the vectors is. The resultant of two vectors is given by parallelogram law. It is given that magnitude of sum is equal to magnitude of difference, that is modulus of a bar plus b bar equal to modulus of a bar minus b bar. So we get a root of a square plus b square plus 2ab cos theta equal to root of a square plus b square minus 2ab cos theta from parallelogram law. Squaring it on both sides and simplifying, we get cos theta equal to 0, that is theta is 90. A body of mass 1 kg begins to move under the action of a time dependent force F bar equal to 2t I cap plus 3t square j cap Newton, where I cap and j cap are unit vectors along x and y axis. What power will be developed by the force at the time t? Acceleration of the body A bar equal to F bar by m. That comes out to be 2t I cap plus 3t square j cap. From there we can find the velocity by applying the definition of acceleration. That is, acceleration is rate of change of velocity. So A bar equal to dv by dt. From there we get velocity on integrating on both sides. Integral dv equal to integral 2t I cap plus 3t square j cap dt. So we get velocity upon integration as t square I cap plus t cube j cap. Now the instantaneous power developed is dot product of force vector and velocity vector, that comes out to be 2t cube plus 3t power 5 watt. The angle of incidence for a ray of light at a refracting surface of a prism is 45 degree. The angle of prism is 60 degree. If the ray suffers minimum deviation through the prism, the angle of minimum deviation and the refractive index of the material of the prism respectively are. As the ray undergoes minimum deviation, we know the condition for minimum deviation is the angle of incidence is equal to angle of emergence. From there we can calculate the angle of minimum deviation delta m equal to I plus E minus A, that comes out to be 30 degrees. Now refractive index of the material of the prism mu equal to sin A plus delta m by 2 by sin A by 2. Upon simplification we get it to be root 2. A particle moves so that its position vector is given by r bar equal to cos omega t x cap plus sin omega t y cap, where omega is constant. Which of the following statements is true? The position vector of the particle r bar equal to cos omega t x cap plus sin omega t y cap. From here we can find the velocity vector by differentiating the position vector. V bar equal to dr bar by dt. That comes out to be minus omega sin omega t x cap plus omega cos omega t y cap. The dot product of position vector and velocity vector, as we can see, are perpendicular to each other. Now coming to the acceleration vector of the particle. Acceleration is rate of change of velocity. So A bar equal to dv bar by dt. That comes out to be minus omega square cos omega t x cap minus omega square sin omega t y cap. That is minus omega square of r bar. So the correct option is velocity is perpendicular to r bar and acceleration is directed towards the origin, since it came out to be negative of r bar. Consider the junction diode as shown in the circuit to be ideal, then the value of current flowing through AB is. You can see the circuit. At A potential of plus 4 volts is applied. It is connected to diode P terminal. The N terminal of the diode is connected to a resistance which is going to point B, which is at minus 6 volts. Now since the diode is ideal, it offers zero resistance in forward bias and infinite resistance in reverse bias conditions. From the voltages given, A is plus 4 volts, B is minus 6 volts, so the diode is in forward bias conditions. So effectively, there is only resistance connected between points A and B. The current is VA minus VB by R. That comes out to be 10 by 1000. So it is 10 power minus 2 ampere. Two identical charged spheres suspended from a common point by two massless strings of length L are initially at a distance D, which is very much less than L, apart because of their mutual repulsion. The charges begin to leak from both the spheres at a constant rate. As a result, the spheres approach each other with a velocity v. Then v varies as a function of distance x between the spheres as. Let us see the diagram for some time. Under equilibrium conditions, the forces acting on one sphere are represented. The tension in the string T, the weight of the sphere mg, the electrical force between the two spheres is kq square by x square, where x is the instantaneous separation between the two spheres. I can resolve tension in the string into two components, that is t cos theta balancing the weight and t sin theta balancing the electrostatic force between the two spheres. So we have t cos theta equal to mg and t sin theta equal to kq square by x square. Dividing the two equations, we get tan theta equal to kq square by mgx square, and that is also equal to sin theta because of small angle approximation, that is equal to x by 2l. Now I can equate these two. X by 2l equal to kq square by mgx square, from which we get q square equal to mgx cube by 2lk. So from that expression I get q, the charge, proportional to x power 3 by 2. Now coming to the given condition, it is given that the charge is leaking from the spheres at a constant rate, that is dq by dt is a constant. We can differentiate the above equation. We get a dq by dt equal to 3 by 2 times root x dx by dt. From there we get v proportional to x power minus 1 by 2. A small signal voltage Vt equal to V0 sin omega t is applied across an ideal capacitor C. Select the correct statements from the following. Capacitor is an energy storing device. It stores energy in the positive half cycle and releases that energy in the negative half cycle. So over a full cycle, a capacitor does not consume any energy. The magnetic susceptibility is negative for. Let us see the definition of magnetic susceptibility first. It is taken as the ratio of intensity of magnetization capital I to the magnetic intensity of the applied field. Magnetic susceptibility is related to relative permeability as mu r equal to 1 plus chi m. So the susceptibility is positive and large for ferromagnetic materials. It is positive and small for paramagnetic materials, and it is negative and small for diamagnetic materials. A square loop ABCD carrying a current I is placed near a long straight conductor XY carrying a current capital I. The net force on the loop will be. We can take this problem as force between parallel conductors. You can see the straight conductor carrying current capital I is parallel or anti-parallel to AB and CD sides of the square loop. The force acting on BC and AD of the square loop is 0. So effectively we need to calculate only two forces. Force on AB F1 equal to mu naught by 2 pi capital I small I by L by 2, and this is attraction force as both currents are parallel to each other. Force on CD F2 equal to mu naught by 2 pi capital I small I by 3L by 2 into L. This is a repulsive force as the currents are opposite to each other. Since both the forces are in opposite directions, the resultant force is obtained by subtracting them, which comes out to be 2 mu naught capital I small I by 3 pi. A uniform rope of length capital L mass m1 hangs vertically from a rigid support. A block of mass m2 is attached to the free end of the rope. A transverse pulse of wavelength lambda 1 is produced at the lower end of the rope. The wavelength of the pulse when it reaches the top of the rope is lambda 2. Then the ratio lambda 2 and lambda 1 is. Speed of transverse wave on a stretched string is given by V equal to root T by mu, where T is a tension in the string and mu is its linear density. The tension in the string here is developed because of the block attached to the string, that is mg. So effectively the speed of transverse wave is root mg by mu, and m is here m2. The wavelength of any wave is given by lambda equal to velocity by frequency. So lambda is directly proportional to velocity as frequency remains constant. From the above expression we get lambda is directly proportional to square root of mass. Wavelength at the lower end of the rope is lambda 1, that is proportional to square root of m2, the mass of the block. Wavelength at the top end of the rope proportional to of m1 plus m2, where m1 is mass of the string and m2 is mass of the block. So when you take the ratio, we get lambda 2 by lambda 1 equal to root of m2 plus m1 by m2. When an alpha particle of mass m moving with a velocity v bombards on a heavy nucleus of charge Ze, its distance of closest approach from the nucleus depends on mass m as kinetic energy of the alpha particle half mv square. Electrostatic potential energy of the combination of alpha particle and the nucleus is 1 by 4 pi epsilon naught 2e into Ze by r, where 2e is the charge carried by alpha particle and Ze is the charge carried by the nucleus. At the distance of closest approach, the alpha particle comes to rest, so its kinetic energy becomes 0. So the initial kinetic energy of the alpha particle gets converted into electrostatic potential energy of the system. So half mv square equal to 1 by 4 pi epsilon naught 2e Ze by r, from where we get r proportional to 1 by m. A disk and a sphere of same radius but different masses roll off on two inclined planes of same altitude and length. Which one of the following two objects get to the bottom of the plane first? Given that both the inclined planes have same altitude and length, so they have same inclination theta. Acceleration of a rolling object down the inclined plane A equal to g sin theta by 1 plus k square by r square. That can also be taken as g sin theta by 1 plus mk square by mr square, where mk square is moment of inertia. Time of descent of the rolling body is t equal to root of 2l by g sin theta into 1 plus k square by r square. From there we see time of descent is proportional to root of 1 plus k square by r square. K square by r square value for disk is 1 by 2 and for sphere is 2 by 5. From these values we can see disk takes longer time to reach the bottom of the inclined plane. From a disk of radius capital R, mass capital M, a circular hole of diameter capital R whose rim passes through the center of the disk is cut. What is the moment of inertia of the remaining part of the disk about a perpendicular axis passing through the center? Moment of inertia of the original disk IC1 equal to mr square by 2. Now coming to the removed portion, mass of the removed portion small m equal to capital M times r square by capital R square. This we obtained as mass of a two-dimensional object is directly proportional to area, and area of the disk is pi r square. From there we get mass of the removed portion as m by 4. Moment of inertia of the removed portion about its center is again mr square by 2. That comes out to be half of capital M by 4 capital R square by 4. Now the moment of inertia of the removed portion about C1, that is the original axis, we obtain by applying parallel axis theorem, that is IC1 here equal to IC2 plus mx square. Upon simplification, that comes out to be 3 times mr square by 32. Now the moment of inertia of the remaining portion is obtained by subtracting this value from the moment of inertia of the original disk. That comes out to be 13 by 32 mr square. A long solenoid has 1000 turns. When a current of 4 ampere flows through it, the magnetic flux linked with each turn of the solenoid is 4 into 10 power minus 3 Weber. The self-induction of the solenoid is. Since the flux linked with each turn of the solenoid is 4 into 10 power minus 3 Weber and there are 1000 turns in the solenoid, the total flux linkages is 1000 into 4 into 10 power minus 3, that is 4 Weber. Now the total flux linkages can be also be written as L into I, from which we get L equal to 4 by I, that is 1 Henry. What is the minimum velocity with which a body of mass m must enter a vertical loop of radius capital R so that it can complete the loop? The critical velocities required for a particle to complete vertical circle are as shown in the diagram, from where we can see at the bottommost point the particle should enter the vertical loop at a velocity of root r, where r is the radius of the circular path. The molecules of a given mass of gas have RMS velocity of 200 meter per second at 27 degrees centigrade and 1.0 into 10 power 5 Newton per meter square pressure. When the temperature and pressure of the gas are respectively 127 degrees centigrade and 0.05 into 10 power 5 Newton per meter square, the RMS velocity of its gas molecules in meter per second will be. Let us see the formula of RMS velocity of a gas molecule, that is root of 3RT by m, where capital R is universal gas constant, capital T is absolute temperature and capital M is molecular weight. As we see from the formula, the RMS velocity of a gas molecule is independent of pressure exerted by the gas molecule and directly proportional to square root of absolute temperature. So V27 by V127 equal to root of 300 by 400, that comes out to be root 3 by 2. So V127 equal to 2 by root 3 times 200, that is initial velocity. So the final value comes out to be 400 by root 3 meter per second. The charge flowing through a resistance capital R varies with time as Q equal to AT minus BT square, where A and B are positive constants. The total heat produced in resistance is. The charge flowing through the resistance Q equal to AT minus BT square. From there we obtain current by differentiating the charge with respect to time, I equal to dq by dt. So we get it as A minus 2bt. The current becomes 0 when A minus 2bt equal to 0, that is T equal to A by 2b. So the current starts at T equal to 0 and flows up to T equal to A by 2b. These two values become the limits of integration. Now the heat produced in the resistor is given by dH equal to I square R dt, where dt is the infinitesimally small amount of time. Now in order to get total heat produced, we have to integrate the above expression H equal to integral dH, that is integral 0 to A by 2b I square R dt, that is integral 0 to A by 2b A minus 2bt whole square R dt. Upon simplification, we get H equal to A cube R by 6b. I advise the students to go through the integration process carefully. A refrigerator works between 4 degrees centigrade and 30 degrees centigrade. It is required to remove 600 calories of heat every second in order to keep the temperature of the refrigerated space constant. The power required is. Let's write the coefficient of performance of a refrigerator formula, beta equal to T2 by T1 minus T2, where T2 is the temperature of sink and T1 is the temperature of the source. From the given values, it comes out to be 277 by 26. The coefficient of performance of the refrigerator can also be written as Q2 by W, where Q2 is the heat removed from sink and W is the work done on the working substance. That is coming out to be 600 by W. From there we get W equal to 56.3 calorie per second. Work done per second is nothing but power. So the power required is 56.3 multiplied with 4.2, that is 236.5 joule per second. That comes out to be 236.5 watt. A uniform circular disc of radius 50 cm at rest is free to turn about its axis which is perpendicular to the plane and passing through the center. It is subjected to a torque which produces a constant angular acceleration of 2 radian per second square. Its net acceleration in meter per second square at the end of 2 seconds is. It is given that the disk is rotating about its natural axis, that is the axis passing through the center and perpendicular to plane of the disk. Now coming to the tangential acceleration, At equal to R alpha, that comes out to be 1 meter per second square. The radial acceleration, also known as centripetal acceleration, is given by AR equal to V square by R, that is also equal to R omega square, where omega is the angular velocity. So R is 0.5, that is radius of the circular disc. In the place of omega, we can write omega naught plus alpha t. So from substitution, we the radial acceleration to be 8 meter per second square. Since the tangential and radial accelerations are mutually perpendicular to each other, net acceleration A equal to root of AT square plus AC square. That comes out to be root 65, that is approximately 8 meter per second square. Match the entries in column 1 with corresponding entries in column 2. As we can see, in column 1, magnification is given, and in column 2, the optical element, either a mirror or a lens, and the type of image is also given. Now let us see sign convention. The positive value of magnification indicates upright and virtual image, and a negative value of magnification indicates inverted and real image. M greater than 1 indicates magnified image, M less than 1 indicates diminished image. A convex mirror always forms diminished virtual upright images, while a concave mirror can form magnified and diminished images, virtual and real images, upright as well as inverted images. From there we can match the column 1 to column 2.